episode 7 of the F2P 30 Crest journey, I achieved 15 crests in the Hazard Zone tower on my first attempt. But obtaining more crests required tackling some of the issues I discussed last episode. Let's dive into these challenges before taking on the tower again this episode. First order of business is upgrading San Hua. He chases me. Level 1 San Hua. Take her up. Random attack. Commission.
Okay.
Nah, I can't have that happening every time, so I'm leveling her up to 40 so that she can take a few more hits. I also upgraded the 3-cost energy regen echo so that she can reliably cast her ult every rotation. The substats aren't the best, but they'll do for now since optimizing San Hua's echoes isn't a priority, especially with my limited echo experience pots. Next, I worked on maxing out Encore skills and unlocking the skill nodes I haven't touched yet. Since I'm still not at Union level 50, I can't get her to level 80. So the next best thing is leveling up her skill nodes, which add a good chunk to her DPS. While I'm not at UL 50 yet, I did hit UL 45, and you know what that means. That's right, a free 5-star standard weapon selection box. This time, I'm picking the 5-star sword for Danjin. After that, I got both the sword and Danjin to level 70 and leveled up her skills as much as I could. I also did some echo farming and updated my DPS echoes. Here's their stats now. With the upgrades completed, it's now time for the second attempt of the tower. This time, the Resonant Tower buffs havoc damage, and the Echoing Tower buffs fusion damage, perfect for my current teams. Time to start clearing. Since the enemies on the first 3 floors are the same as the last tower, the strategies haven't changed much. But this time, I'm back with stronger DPS, giving me more room for mistakes and making it easier to get 3 crests on the first 2 floors. I'm still figuring out how to rotate efficiently with the Danjin Rover team. Most guides suggest using Danjin as a support to buff Havoc MC's damage, not as a main DPS. On the other hand, when it comes to Danjin as a main DPS, we often see players clearing entire towers with her as a standalone unit. But this isn't something just anyone can pull off. You've got to get comfortable dodging enemies while staying at low enough HP that even a single hit could end your run. In other words, you're aiming for perfect dodges throughout the entire fight. It's a high-skill playstyle, which is probably why you don't see many people using Danjin as a main DPS, except for a select few goated players. Anyways, with Danjin and Rover dishing out much more damage, floors 1 and 2 of the Resonant Tower were cleared effortlessly without any issues. Remember, the key to clearing floor 2 is to target the small Whisperins while letting the Clangbang and Stonewall Bracer chase after you. They'll take damage in your line of fire as you focus on the Whisperins. Floor 3, and here we are again, dealing with brain fart moments like forgetting Danjin's combos or wasting her ult on thin air. Add to that Baiji's lack of energy regen and the occasional lapse in skill. While warming up for the floor, I remembered something crucial. You can swap weapons and echoes between attempts. Unlike resonators, which have limited stamina, weapons and echoes don't share that restriction. This means you can optimize with one universal healing set for your supports. Just make sure to remember to swap the echoes back afterward. So I swapped out a 3-cost echo for Verina's energy regen echo and changed the weapon as well. With that, Baizi now has 190% energy regen, just enough to get her ult up every rotation. This made managing the rotation so much smoother, and in turn, made the floor a lot easier to clear. Just like last time, I started by targeting the lanky Fraxidus enemy and unloading all the AoE attacks right away before they spread out. With Rovers' improved energy regen from his level 70 middle skill node, Bleak Crescendo, I could afford to be a bit more liberal with his ult early on and to be ready again during the next rotation. I also have 140% energy regen on Rover, which made this possible. In the last episode, I noticed that the Flawless tends to teleport away, usually moving back in the direction where the Resonator is facing it. After the intro just now, instead of trying to mark the Flawless, I should have repositioned so that when it teleports, it lands near the second Flawless. Because I didn't do that, they ended up far apart, decreasing my damage output by a lot since I'm only able to hit one at a time now. One surprising thing, though, was the range of Havoc Rover's ult. I thought I wouldn't be able to hit the second Flawless, but it turns out it was just on the edge of the ult's hitbox. And this was one of the decisive moments that determined the outcome of this floor. Continue watching to see the other decisive moment that really sealed the deal for this floor.
神秘へと至る道私の出番いやこれでもうさらい
And this here is the other decisive moment. When you're dealing with a low HP enemy and have barely any time left, you can use your ults and pray that it deals enough damage, which is exactly what happened here. After clearing floor 3, I honestly don't have much expectation for myself on floor 4, mainly because there's a 20 level difference between my DPS and the monsters. The enemies just have too much HP, and I probably won't be able to deal enough damage to get any additional crests, let alone clear the stage. But hey, it never hurts to give it a try. I could use this as an opportunity to gather information about the floor, so I know what to expect and what to do in my future runs. Even if I don't clear it, at least I'll have some insight into what I need to improve. From my observations, these groups of enemies tend to clump together. So if your attacks scatter them, focus your target on the stone wall bracer. After a while, they'll regroup, making it optimal to use AoE attacks on them again.
影に溶ける 静寂に沈めこれも音の力だ私の出番カキツリやっこれでも
As for the boss, I don't have much to say about it right now. I just need more levels and damage. The only other thing I need to work on is refining my rotation for this team. Barely made it, but I'll take this W and move on to the Echoing Tower. Just like the previous episode, on floor 1, I targeted the Exile Technician and let the Exile Leader step into my line of fire, easily clearing the floor. Because I raised Sanhua to level 40 earlier, she didn't suffer the same mishaps as last time. I also managed to get by floor 2 without Sanhua just spontaneously combusting on the spot. This did happen once in floor 3 though. But aside from that one instance, the run went pretty smoothly. Like last time, I prioritized the Tambourinists in the backline first, since their floating projectiles and DOT fields can really disrupt the combat flow. Taking them out early made the fight a lot less chaotic, and dealing with the Chasm Guardian after that was a piece of cake. Now onto floor 4, the most challenging floor for me this run, but also the one where I learned the most. At the start, I kept the rotation pretty simple with Encore's team. After Encore's ult, I used her skill, swapped to Verena for some air attacks, then switched back to Encore to finish the second part of her skill cast. From there, I used her special heavy attack and swapped back to Verena to charge up her concerto. Once Verena's concerto was ready, I swapped to Sanhua. I charged up her heavy attack to burst the ice crystal from her intro, followed by her skill and ult. Then another heavy attack burst the remaining ice crystals on the field, fully charging her concerto. Before swapping back to Encore, I activated the Heron Echo skill, and the rotation began with Encore again. While this rotation worked well and got me 3 crests in the first 3 floors of the tower, it didn't have enough DPS to take down the boss on floor 4. I only managed to whittle the boss down to about 25% HP when the timer hit 45 seconds on my first attempt. Unsatisfied, I reattempted this floor multiple times. And by multiple times, I mean way more than just a few tries. It wasn't until the 20th attempt that I started developing the habit of squeezing in Encore's skill during Sanhua's rotation. While the rotation was still rough around the edges, this adjustment added a bit more DPS, bringing me a little closer to defeating the boss. But even with this improvement, it wasn't enough. I still needed more damage to clear this floor. On my 21st attempt, I got even closer by refining the rotation slightly, optimizing how I used Encore's skill during Sanhua's rotation. Yet, it still wasn't enough. I needed more. In the following attempts, I experimented with using one-cost summon echoes as the main echo on Encore. However, this significantly reduced my DPS, so I quickly swapped back to using Inferno Rider as the main echo. By the 30th attempt, I found myself debating whether to keep going or just be content with fully clearing the first 3 floors of each tower. Fatigue was starting to set in, and I wasn't sure if pushing further was even worth it. Maybe all I needed was a good rest, so I took a nap to reset my state of mind. After a much-needed nap, I came back to floor 4 feeling refreshed and ready to tackle it with a clearer mind. The same can't be said about my skill though. I needed some time to warm up. Anyways, after getting into the groove again, I realized I had been missing a small chunk of damage by not equipping the 5-star weapon on Sanhua. This could just be the thing that can tip the fight in my favor. After 34 attempts, I managed to clear this last floor of the Echoing Tower. Let this be a lesson to those who are struggling to clear this floor or aiming for more crests. Do not underestimate your support resonators. Sometimes, it's those little details that make all the difference. Hazard Tower is still quite a far-fetched goal with the current state of my resonators. I'll need to get stronger before I can even think about attempting it. This concludes the second attempt on the tower with 20 crests achieved. I hope you've learned something that you can apply in your tower runs. I'll see you in the next episode. Happy gaming, Rovers!